and gentlemen, my name is Nick, and his name is Sri, and this is the Respawn Station Podcast. How was that?
Whoa! I feel like I'm in a supermarket or like a fantasy supermarket.
I was trying to go for like a sports announcer kind of vibe on that one.
Oh, okay, yeah. Hey, how about
yes.
We got yep.
Yes, this is, it's been a while, as I was just mentioning to Sri. This is the Respawn Station Podcast. It is 2026. It has been several months since we've recorded last. We went on our normal little hiatus at the end of last year. I had a move that, I went through, and we all just had a whole bunch of stuff happening, so it's been a long road to get back to recording again, but we're back, Sri.
Last year, Nick started the mission of completing the N64 collection. Is it just the North American collection?
Yeah, the North American collection. Okay. So it's about just shy of 300 games in that collection.
And how many do you have so far? With spoilers, you can tell people what So you got stockpiling.
With spoilers, I'm not caught up currently on my my video making, but we are sitting around 60 games out of that 300 now. Nice. So, pretty cool. We're chugging away. I got some
fifth of the way there.
I got some cool ones coming up in some future videos here that are a bit more uncommon. So that'll be really fun to talk about whenever I get around to that. But
now, today, as of when we're recording this, we just released a brand new episode 3, and it's unlike any of the other ones we've already seen because, yes, it does include footage of Nick in his car and you role-playing as the Woody in on your passenger seat, just staring longingly up at him. But, boy, we could not have planned it better. Our contacts in Nintendo have paid off. They've tipped us to a very exciting Nintendo Direct that they just suddenly dropped on us. And so I guess there's no better way to talk about the news than this. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the first official section of the brand new season of Respawn Station Podcast. Jeez, we got to come up with a catchier title for that. But let's talk about the news. And starting with I almost said the Nick 64 re-release. No, the Star Fox 64 remake. Nick, tell us all about it.
Yo, okay. So, basically, to preface this, why we are kind of, bringing up Nick 64 in relation to this, the episode that went out today, as of recording, is me revisiting Star Fox 64, which, specifically, I went back to replay that game because I was just kind of in the mood for that type of game, but also Nintendo announced that Star Fox McCloud was going to be in the Mario Galaxy movie, and that's what kind of pushed me to go see the movie. So I was like, oh, well, here's an excuse to go see the movie, then we'll go play Star Fox, and that'll be, this fun, video or whatever.
Today, after many delays, we decided to put out the video.
Yeah, then today we finally put out the video, and in said video, there is a moment in there where I bring up that there's been rumors about a new Star Fox game coming out. And out of the blue, Nintendo, I joked with you, Sri, they must have saw the video or something, because out of the blue, about like an hour ago, maybe a little bit more,
So for context, that's about 5-6 hours after our Nick 64 episode went up.
They, out of the blue, Miyamoto comes to Twitter to say that they are releasing a Star Fox Switch 2 Direct that's 15 minutes long. In this Direct, they announced that essentially they are remaking Star Fox 64. Now, what's funny about this is that to Star Fox fans, this is like the fourth freaking time they've remade 64, which is...
I was going to say, I have definitely... There's one on the 3DS and one on the Wii U.
Yes. Right? Zero is like... It is like technically a different game, but there's a lot of Star Fox 64 kind of DNA, and especially like the levels you go to, the way that the story, unfolds. It's very reminiscent of 64, right? But this new game, just titled Star Fox, which was a bit surprising to me, is like an actual, like they say it in the direct, this is like a, you know, we're redoing 64 again, essentially. And so it has like the same game structure. You kind of go through this, you know, route through the galaxy. Depending on what you do in each level kind of determines which route through the game you take. Also, they might be changing this a little bit, but in the original 64, it kind of denoted your difficulty depending on which route you went. This game, it looks like they have like actual difficulty, you know, selections. So I don't know how exactly that's going to translate with this, but I want to kick it to you, Sri, in a second, because I could just fanboy forever on it. But the one thing that really caught me by surprise at first was the visuals, I would say.
Yes, I agree.
It's the characters look a little weird to me. It was, you know, it took me a minute to kind of get used to it, but the environments, I'm like, oh shit, like this looks pretty sick.
No, and that's all I have to really go on. I haven't played. This is something we were discussing as in the multi-week process between when Nick had the first draft of the Nick 64 episode and to now. And I've never played Star Fox 64, and it's kind of new to me. I did enjoy his cameo or kind of guest appearance in the Super Mario Brothers movie, or Galaxy, sorry. Got to say it's the second one. And yeah, the visuals in this thing look awesome. And also like the tech of the demo that they give of like the facial animations and stuff like that. Like it looks much better. I don't think it's quite like playing the movie. And I say that as in like, maybe not quite to the level of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a really polished Nintendo game. And like Bonanza, I suppose. But Bonanza has a unique art style. I can't really compare it, but you know, insert game here that I'm trying to think about. You guys do that work, okay? Meet me halfway. And that being said, it still looks like it's very distinctly a Star Fox game. Like it has the visuals down, like, and but like, you know, in the ship you can see all the details of how you know, his, I don't know what the ship is called,
the R-Wing.
Yeah, exactly. That the way it looks and everything. I'm excited. Is there a release date on this? I actually didn't see that.
It's coming out in June. It's like a month away.
Dude, my birthday this year is crazy. We got a Steven Spielberg movie. We got Surprise Star Fox. I mean, hey. Now, that being said, is this like an immediate pre-order from you, I'm guessing? This is confirmed to have both a digital release and a physical release as well. I'm not sure if it's a game key card, but it seems that people are moving away from the game key cards, thankfully. So
yes, with an asterisk. I'm definitely gonna get it. I have a lot of nostalgia for 64, obviously. Just made a whole hour-long video about it, right?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of nostalgia for it. And, you know, as I hope comes across in the video, original Star Fox 64 is a game that still holds up today. It is still like a really fun game, full of, you know, character, full of, you know, interesting game design, and just being able to play it again, like, I'm going to enjoy it. I also say that fully knowing that this is another one of those Nintendo monkey paw kind of situations where it's like, yes, they are just remaking 64 again. Yes, it is a pretty safe option. Like, yes, you know, it's, you know, I wish that they would do something different with the series, right? But for me personally, it scratches just like an itch that I like. And like, I have like such a strong connection to that game that just purely like looking at the footage in this trailer and being able to be like, I mean, it is so fresh because I just played the game, right? But like just picking out like boss fights and, you know, picking out the planets and stuff. It's like, I don't know if this is too like memey of an answer, right? But it's like you put like the Spider-Man put his glasses on meme and he just sees stuff. It's just like, whoa. It's like
it's kind of like that effect of the childhood game, how it looks in your head when you're thinking about it is how this game essentially looks now.
And, you know, I'm no stranger, we talked at length about Starfield and stuff. Like, I really like space kind of games and space imagery, and that was just my biggest takeaway from this. It's like, whoa, the planets look so sick in this. The skyboxes look so sick. The other big takeaway for me personally was cutscenes. Like, there's like 2 cutscenes in Star Fox 64, and so this time it seems like they're actually kind of like building the story and like elevating that more to the forefront. So there is definitely stuff in this game that is going to be unique to this version. Also, the little like prelude that they ended the direct on, that's not really ever shown in the games. So there's definitely going to be some new stuff in the game. But more so than that stuff, while I'm super excited and everything like that, I think it's just going to be nice to have like another Switch 2 game to play. Because I was kind of talking with my friend beforehand, and I was like, the only things that I have are Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza. And those are the 2 kind of big ones. I mean, you have like Kirby Air Riders, Pocopia.
Dude, Alexa is lost in the sauce in Pocopia. I mean, she is so taken by this game. We can maybe get into a little bit later in Save Slot, but yeah, it's
which I've heard it's
never
great.
Underestimate the Pocopia mania, man.
But like I'm just not like that hot into Pokemon, so it's like that's like an easy kind of write-off for me, where it's just like I don't need to play that. But getting a new Star Fox game, it's like, oh hell yeah, I'm definitely buying this. So
it's crazy, Nick, because the way it sounds like you're hooked on the nostalgia. Because what you said is the new IP that came out, I can write that off, but the 20-year-old game?
30, I think they said for the 30, Super Nintendo one. I'm super jazzed about it. I'm sure that because we're still so fresh after this direct, like I'm sure that the internet discourse will probably be all over the place with this game, but I'm definitely looking forward to it, and stay tuned to a future save slot where I share my thoughts on that. Maybe we'll have to do another video. Maybe I'll do another Nick 64 video comparing the OG to the remake.
Now, of course, you can play the remake, or you can pick up the original game or one of the various re-releases in retro game stores, or even now at GameStop, because GameStop has been changing some things up. They have retro games across all their stores, and in a bold move that people saw coming for about 24 hours before it actually happened, GameStop put in a bid to buy eBay. It's above, I think, the market share value, and I think the CEO said, like, I'm selling things on eBay to pay for eBay, and he's just selling like parts of his own collection. So he has like some video games, but I briefly looked at it, and he has a GameStop logo, like the thing that you see in front of GameStops that light up displays, the
like marquee light up sign.
It's like $1,000 or something. Anyway, it's a unique take. I think this is essentially the byproduct of what was it, like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, when the Wall Street bets and all that stuff happened, where the stock kind of just took off. I think this is sort of the result of that. I think GameStop, I don't know if they would have gone under, but they would have certainly not had the buying power, I'll say, to make a move like this. But that being said, I just hope it doesn't happen, because man, this feels like borderline Elon Musk buying Twitter level of bad transactions.
Well, like I don't even know where to start with this, because it's like I was at work the other day, and then I just got the notification, I think on Twitter, that it was like GameStop puts in bid for eBay. I'm like, what? Like, it just kind of didn't really make sense to me, and I don't really understand what the thought process is, because even like the quick blurbs that I was seeing online is that like GameStop is like valued like way lower than eBay is anyway. So it's like, it just kind of, to me, it feels like it's almost like a Hail Mary, like publicity stunt kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, we're going to buy eBay, and then like nothing's going to happen from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some, I guess, semblance of a strategy there in terms of maybe GameStop has been in this, used product business for a while. And I'm not just talking about used video games. They, take in phone trades and consoles, obviously, as well, and a bunch of random stuff. They also now do heavy card trading and stuff like that. And again, I'm not an inside expert or anything like that. I worked at GameStop, god damn it, 10 years ago. But my thought would be that, eBay is recently doing these eBay certified. I don't know how often you go on eBay, but they have this like eBay certified selection, which it's like more, I guess, more vetted, more trusted sellers or something along that line. And so you're guaranteed to get good quality. Like, if you buy a graded Pokemon card, you're guaranteed some sort of like, oh, there's a reassurance, I suppose. And I'm guessing it's some sort of a marriage between the two, is like bringing those stores or bringing that eBay certified stuff into stores or opening new stores entirely. I don't know what exactly the plan would be, but I could maybe in this weird Venn diagram, that's the crossover I can imagine. But yeah, I don't think that by and large it's a good thing for eBay, and for the used market overall, I think it's a pretty just a lose-lose situation. Also, I don't know if you know this, but GameStop also doesn't sell their like Pokemon cards. I'm not in the Pokemon collecting business right now, but they sell Pokemon cards for kind of adjusted rates. Like they don't sell it whatever the base price is, They sell boxes to closer to street value, which is kind of a crazy thing considering, I don't know. It feels like if Best Buy did that, I'd be like, that's weird. Why is that happening? But GameStop, and you're like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, like it's kind of weird, and I bringing it back around to the thing you opened with, where all of the locations have retro games now. Like I could kind of see like a path if it's like in a weird way that sort of like bolsters their retro sales figures. Like I don't know how that would work, because it's like it wouldn't be necessarily their inventory if it would be like other eBay users and stuff. But
I mean, for a while they tried to do that Think Geek stuff too, right? Like they bought Think Geek and then they put it all in store. It's pretty much, they're trying to do everything except like Game Informer. They're like, Game Informer, that's a sinking ship, but have we tried Harley Quinn panties? Stocking the shelves with that. That's gotta be great for business.
I thought for a second you were gonna say they're doing everything but video games. And I was like, that sounds like GameStop.
You want to know? You want to know what's crazy? All right, this is a real thing that happened. I go to GameStop at least once a month because I have like the membership. So they give me $5 $5 off coupon every month. And so I went in last week, and it seems there's a new manager in the store, and it wasn't that busy, but like there, both registers had at least one person on it, and then there's a call that comes in, and it's not like in a rush, people are taking slow, they're chatting. There's a phone call comes in, and the other guy picks it up, and then the manager is like, "Hey, what was that?" And the guy was like, "Oh, it's just someone who called earlier, asking us to hold the game. They're just telling us that they wanted to make sure the game was here because they're on their way now." And this woman goes, "People need to stop caring so much about video games." And I was like, what the fuck? What are you doing here? I mean, like, look, I'm not saying you can't have that outlook. Like if I heard that at, a fucking Goodwill or a Red Cross or whatever, like some other situation, I'd be like, oh, sure, yeah, that makes sense, sure. But like at a GameStop in the center behind the counter while there's people holding games for you to for them to buy,
right?
It felt like a weird, and like immediately people in the store were kind of like exchanging looks, like, what? This person does that? So yeah, GameStop's doing great. Can't wait for them to buy eBay.
So you haven't worked there in 10 years, but I feel like you always got new GameStop stories that always make me laugh. So
it haunts me, man. Now, that being said, there's a few random bits of news to talk about. Some red alerts that maybe it were false flags. Nick, where do you want to go?
Let's go right into that one. PlayStation 5, there's a big dust up about this change and possible DRM kind of thing that was going on. Pretty much what happened was people started recognizing after I believe it was a system software update went out, that if their console was offline, recently purchased games were not able to be launched. And essentially that was a kind of a change to how they used to, how they used to function on older system software versions, firmware. That's the word I was looking for. And pretty much this kind of thing has like existed in various forms, but essentially when you buy a game on like PlayStation Network, basically the system backend kind of has to have, a handshake with Sony's servers to verify that you have the license to be able to, launch and play the game. Once it does this kind of handshake, then it basically would transition into a version of the license that meant that you had it like in perpetuity, essentially, was my understanding of this. What happened after this recent software update happened was essentially there was like a 30-day timer or something attached to this handshake. And if you did not connect to the internet to receive this handshake with the servers, it would like lock out access to the license, or like it would, suggest that you didn't have the license to play the game that you just purchased. And this kind of got everybody up in a bit of an internet uproar, kind of justifiably so. But what ended up happening was it is a specific window, I think, to try to you can fill in here, Sri, once I get the message out, because I'm not still fully sure on it, but it's basically a timing window because people were like exploiting the handshake process and were able to like get refunds for games that they hadn't played but keep the system offline, and so that it wouldn't like revoke the license. That was kind of my understanding on it.
Essentially it was the initial fear, which if it was justified, as Nick was saying, if it happened to be what people thought it was that, you have to re-up your system to the internet every 30 days or something like that just to confirm. And so that was the fear of like managing the person's video game library. But yeah, this really seems to be that it waits for 30 days and you have to connect it back to the internet outside of the refund period, so that the PlayStation Store can be like, this person does definitely still own the game, and then they can go back to playing the game in perpetuity whenever they want, offline. Doesn't matter if you reconnect or not. So yeah, it's a kind of a loophole that they were trying to close out. It just happened to be that I also feel like for what it was, the explanation for this came like there was such a delay on responses that like people were doing their own like research and testing, like all this stuff without any response from Sony being like, "Hey guys, it's not what it is," to clarify what's happening.
Yeah, that was also the big thing, was just kind of like highlighting how kind of poor PlayStation's communication has become over the last couple years. It's definitely not like a new talking point regarding them, but it feels like in the transition from PS4 to PS5, they have become a lot more like walled off and like, we'll only communicate via like PlayStation blog, or like if something kind of like this happens where it's really not like a huge thing, but like it just keeps getting blown out of proportion because there's no information and no communication out there about it. So yeah, I think if there's a takeaway from this, it's that definitely keep these gaming companies to task when random changes like this happen and are not communicated, but also it highlights that, communication can and probably always will need to improve with a lot of this stuff, because people don't want the stuff that they spend their hard-earned money on to just be taken away.
Yeah. And this was actually, I think, to show how much this was kind of blown out of proportion. Even my manager, and I don't work, my day job is not in the games industry, And so even my manager was like, so what about this PlayStation DRM thing? And so it's kind of a noticeable kind of conversation piece, it seems. But yeah, let's get the facts hopefully straight, and nothing like this actually ends up happening in the future. But that being said, I think we're kind of going from console to console. We've already hit the Nintendo, we've hit PlayStation. So let's talk a little bit about Xbox.
Sure.
I threw a curveball in there because since we've been off air, Xbox has had a change in management. Asha Sharma has taken over, and there's been quite a few actions that have been done since her kind of taking the charge that are worth noting, and I think some of them are kind of the moves in the right direction. I'm not going to really consider the changing of the logo to be that drastic as some people might, but that being said, the kind of first actions are, one, they've gotten rid of every mention of this is an Xbox on the Xbox website, which if you've watched previous seasons of the show, I love that ad campaign. I mean,
we can't make that joke anymore. They got rid of it. It's now retired jokes.
Yeah, sadly, can't make that joke. They also, after kind of a internal leaked email, which I always wonder with certain things like that, how leaked it is when it's like really good for the company. Because what she was essentially saying was, Game Pass is sort of unaffordable and it's like such a high price and we need to find a way to manage it. And within a week of that email leaking, again, who knows, there was an action done on it. And they've essentially announced that, the Xbox Game Pass prices are going down immediately. It was like $7 lower for Xbox Ultimate, I think, from 30 to 23 or something like that. And that starts again with the immediate kind of price cycle. But the catch is that Call of Duty games will no longer release on Xbox Game Pass day one. Instead, they'll be offset by a year. So the last Call of Duty will appear on next year's Game Pass as the next newest Call of Duty is coming out. Obviously. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it didn't take them very long to make that discovery that probably wasn't going to be good for their bottom line.
Yeah, I can't confirm, but I think it's somewhere around like $300 million were lost from Call of Duty's revenue with adding it to Game Pass. So yeah, it's probably quite a big chunk out of their biggest moneymaker. I think since especially the big acquisitions spree that they went on. So, yeah, the stuff that's happening at Xbox is a nice change of pace because it seems like they're moving in the right direction. I will say that there was a period of time where late last season and then kind of even when we're off air, things were looking very bleak, where we were like, man, how long is this race for the consoles gonna go? And look, Xbox is still not out of the rut. They're on like their second year of loss of revenue, kind of year on year. And so it's not like perfect. The numbers aren't all green, but it's a kind of a well, no pun intended there.
I was going to call that out.
But that being said, I'm looking forward to more seasons of talking about Xbox, and hopefully they stay afloat.
Kind of like you said, like the stuff that Sharma's done so far, I think, it's good things so far, but it is also kind of like minor things and kind of like, I don't want to say easy wins, because I'm sure it wasn't like an easy discussion to be like, hey, we need to slash prices on Game Pass. Like, those are like actionable, actual things that, are changing the trajectory of Xbox in a positive direction. I just hold back a little bit because I felt the same way about Phil Spencer taking over in the Xbox One thing. And there was all these great things about, backwards compatibility and, really kind of whenever the acquisitions actually started, like trying to get exclusive games on Xbox and all this stuff. That's why that sort of like 2016 to 2019 kind of time frame was like, I think, pretty strong for Phil Spencer. But then obviously, as the last couple years have shown, even that kind of reversed fortune and kind of nosedive. So I'm holding back a little bit. Probably need a good amount of time to see how these changes actually affect the situation. But at least on paper and on social media, it's like, yeah, each time they're saying something, it's like, that's good. You probably should have done that like 5 years ago. But
yeah, I think the tougher thing to kind of do and track with going forward, that obviously we'll probably be talking about on the podcast over the next few months and years, is how they treat the Xbox brand in terms of, is it an actual console ecosystem, or is it just another kind of publisher of video games, which is sort of the shift that happened in the last 2 years or so, with a lot of Xbox games going to PlayStation and stuff like that. And then on top of that is how they look at exclusives. And, if they, they're going to look at the large library of first party titles and decides to keep the ones that they would have normally put out, or vice versa. And, how that kind of release schedule goes. Because, they could also do the same thing as Game Pass in Call of Duty, where they're like, hey, a year after the Xbox release, Forza will come out on PlayStation. I don't know if that's the release plan for Forza. I don't think there's a release date for the PlayStation version, but you get the idea. Now, with the Xbox out of the way, it's time for the last console maker, Steam. Steam Machine is still nowhere in sight. There's whispers, there's words in the wind that perhaps the first Steam machines have touched down in the US somewhere, but we don't know about that for sure yet. What we do know is that the Steam controller is out, which is essentially a kind of an iteration on the original Steam controller that came out, but also more specifically a Steam machine, or sorry, what's it called? Steam Machine? No, Steam Deck. Jeez, how did Gabe's checks are not clearing? The Steam Deck, but with the screen chopped off, and kind of, it looks like a bulky controller, but the reviews are all kind of glowing, especially for, I guess, PC players who prefer the trackpads and gyros. I think they're kind of notably the special things. But for $99, Nick, is this something you'd pick up?
No.
Good, because you have to pay at least $150 to $200 on eBay to buy it on the secondhand market.
Yeah, because they're completely sold out, and Valve made a little statement the other day, being like, "Yeah, it sold out faster than we thought, so that kind of sucks." But
you'd think they know by now that like anything that they make will sell like hotcakes.
You'd think.
They're always like, "Oh my god, I was not expecting it to be this good. Oh no."
Honestly, when you were transitioning into this, I thought you were going to say that the Steam controller's out, and it's out. Like out, it was released and it's out of stock.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about it. I think it was one of our last episodes last season, talking about the newly revealed Steam machines and controllers and stuff. The reviews did kind of surprise me, the positive reviews, because I was like, it's just like you said, it seems like a bulky controller. It seems like it's loaded with stuff that I don't know if I would necessarily use, but everybody said it's pretty comfortable. So like, yeah, I'm still intrigued in the Steam machine, but I am losing more and more faith that is going to be an affordable product. I think that is going to be pretty expensive when those actually drop.
I've said for a long time that I want to pick up the Steam machine, and because we expected it to be out around this time, getting release dates and stuff, and we're still kind of in the dark. So just a few weeks ago, I ended up actually just purchasing a PC, and so I'm not on the market for the Steam machine. But that being said, like I'm still a controller person, and so a spoiler alert, the next retrograde is Batman Arkham Origins. I literally went through all of the games in my head.
I heard that.
But it's Arkham Origins, and while I'm playing it, I realized I absolutely hate playing with a keyboard and mouse. It is not the way that this game was meant to be played. And so I just hooked up a DualShock 4 controller to my PC, and that's how I'm going to be playing it going forward. But that being said, as a newly adopted PC player, I don't think that no part of this controller really interests me. I have a Steam Deck, like I said, and I rarely use the trackpads. So it just functionally doesn't like really, it doesn't make a difference for me, at least in the games that I play. I think it mainly affects players who, one, don't like, who might have large hands and they want that big picture experience where you can kick your Steam into sort of a TV mode. And I say big hands because obviously the controller is really big, but also anyone who plays sort of like Sims games or like TRPGs or something like that, where you want the mouse controls and it's kind of more precision, but at the kind of leisure of leaning back and not kind of keyboard and moused up.
Sure.
That's the kind of functionality of it. Again, you can think about it for a good long time if you're going to get it or not, because it's going to be a good long time before it's back in stock for you to check it out. Probably, my guess is by the time that the Steam machine actually comes out is when the next wave will release. But
they'll probably have
anyway,
an orange one for Half-Life 3 when they announce
don't do that, because then see then things get messy.
Sorry, I just talked about Star Fox 64 and we're getting a remake. We got to keep talking about it.
So, that being said, we've covered all of the consoles, and now it's time for some of the smaller hits to go along the way. First of all, we have a little bit of unfortunate news, and this is sort of I'm not going to say the tipping point, because I really hope this doesn't happen further in the future. But Nacon in the last few months has announced insolvency, and there's been a lot of interesting things happening regarding Nacon. I'm just so baffled by this publisher right now, because they've consistently been putting out video games. Like in the last few months, weeks even, I've played 2 of their new releases, and I know there's more on the way. Greedfall 2, you can read my review for that on respawnstation.com now. Banished, I am working on my review. It's one of the games that's kind of slipped into my backlog that I'll need to get back into and finish. But both of those are Nacon titles, and in Greedfall 2's review, I mentioned that, with the situation with Nacon and kind of the question about how the support for Greedfall 2 will continue, or if it will continue, because of Nacon's situation. And, again, spoiler alert, I guess, for my review of Greedfall 2, I wasn't a huge fan of it, mainly because I think there's certain things that need to be made, or changes that need to be made to that game to see it through. And it seems that although they've gotten some work into the game to kind of patch things up, and there's also one DLC kind of done that will be released kind of soon, Spiders, the developer, is no more. And it's like right away. I think within a few days, they said that they're done. There's, they're like, don't even reach out to us. If you want support, go to Nacon. No one's going to answer your calls here, essentially. So sad that, it still happens. And I don't know what's going on with Nacon, because tomorrow, as of when we're recording this, so it'll be a topic in the next episode of Respawn Station Podcast, Nacon has a Connect, and they're like, hey, by the way, guys, you've been waiting for it, and we're sorry for the delay, but Nacon Connect is back. And it's like, what? There's, it's like throwing a party while the house is burning down. It just doesn't make sense. But I digress. They do have a few games on their slate. So, Nick, you have any Nacon games on your radar? I mean, they make the Terminator game, right? Terminator. RoboCop,
yeah, I was gonna say Terminator and RoboCop were the 2 that I have direct connection with. I think that there's like maybe one other game. Like, aren't they doing like a Blade Runner game or something?
Oh, sure. I think so.
I forget if that's Nacon or not, but like there's like a couple games that I've played, but of the ones that I've played, RoboCop, Rogue City and stuff, they definitely fit in that like AA kind of developer space. Sure. So
I think they kind of fall in line with THQ Nordic.
Yes. Yeah, I think of them in very similar grouping. And if there's one thing that we've kind of like, I don't know if we've expressly talked about it in older seasons of the podcast. I'm sure we brought it up, but it's that when AAA is ballooning budgets and, you know, layoffs like around the clock essentially, and indie is, you know, getting a bit bigger, we kind of wanted to, there must exist a path where AA can also kind of hit the same level, but it feels like AA is kind of the area that's getting, you know, gutted the hardest. It's like any of these ones that can't put up like a several $100 million game, but they're also not small enough to only, you know, have like a small amount of overhead for like developers and stuff. It's like these are the ones that get, you know, the throat slashed like the fastest and the most brutally. So it kind of sucks, obviously. Like, I don't, you know, seeing Greedfall and Steel Rising from Spiders, like, say what you will about those games. Like, I think that they had an audience, but maybe they didn't hit quite the level that, you know, a mass audience was kind of expecting for. So,
but, you know, it would be foolish to think that it could, right? Like, I think the very existence of a AA market is, you know, trying to start, like, it's almost like trying to set out to make a movie and only expecting it to be a cult classic. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's not going to get the box office numbers right away or the immediate kind of critical acclaim. But in the long run, it'll kind of outlive some of the more middling games or even kind of big blockbusters that kind of maybe leave the mind a lot faster. So it's a weird place to be. But I again, some of the most interesting stuff, and it's so weird because I don't finish a lot of these games in this AA space, but the time I have with them, I enjoy. It's just there's a certain amount of weight, you know, friction, as I've said in my Greedfall review. I'd recommend reading that. I think it's about as eloquent as I can get about this topic. So yeah, sad to see Spiders go. I hope, you know, wish the whole team kind of a good home in terms of like another studio or, you know, wherever career path they end up picking. I wish them well, but I mean, it's going to be interesting seeing how Nacon goes from here.
Yeah, that direct it's going to be interesting to see how that's tonally handled.
Yeah, how do you dance around it? and how, you know, how do you, like, if there's a live chat, how do you ignore the people that are in going to be in chat inevitably going like,
it's like, we really want to thank Spiders for delivering this, you know, Greedfall 2 DLC. We are gladly going to release it, but you don't have jobs anymore. Right? Like,
yeah. There's a few last quick hits before we get to the main topic of the show. First of all, there's a new indie subscription service called Indie Pass. This is from indie. It's essentially an indie publisher that is doing it. It's called what is it? Indie.io, of course. So Indie.io is putting out a subscription service where for $6.99 per month or $55.92 per year, you can get access to a catalog of indie games, and you can play them similar to like an Xbox Game Pass. It's to kind of give visibility to indie games and smaller releases. You can find out more about it over on respawnstation.com, but that's just a quick plug. It's something to keep an eye out for because there's some interesting games on there that fans of smaller indie games and smaller projects might enjoy. Also, let's talk about some new releases. Let's get these games on your release radar. Is that copyrighted? You think someone's already saying it's radar?
Release radar? I don't know. I've not heard it.
Well, let's put these on your release radar. First of all, we have Thick as Thieves, the game from Warren Spector and Paul Neurath. This is the first game from their indie studio called Other Side Entertainment. Again, you can find out more about it over on respawnstation.com, but the game launches in May 20th, or in just a few weeks, and it's going to be $5.
Crazy.
There's a certain level of missions that you'll get for it, but there's expansions that they have planned. But yeah, $5 was not expecting that price tag on that game. And it's an immediate sell for me, you know, like any interest I had funds the $5 price tag to at least check out the game, see what it has to offer.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to argue with a $5 price tag. Like, even like at the $20 range, you might get people that are like, like, I might wait for a sale. $5. I mean, it's like, what else can you buy for $5 these days? Like nothing.
Not even a Starbucks coffee, apparently. So yeah, very excited. I'm sure I'll check out, Thick as Thieves when it comes out soon. But man, May has some absolute bangers in it, man. I mean, May 20th, we got this. Also on May 20th, I believe, is Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. If you watched the last season, you'll know that we got hands-on with this game at Gamescom and really liked it. And it's funny, Nick, because, and this is not going to spoil anything about what I have to say about Arkham Asylum, Arkham Origins. God damn it. I'm never going to get it right. The one thing I noticed is there's not a Batman game where the city's alive. Like they always find some excuse to like rid the streets of population, and Lego Batman does that. It gives you a full kind of live city to kind of explore and almost the exact same elements now that I'm playing Arkham Origins. There's a lot of similarities, so definitely on my radar. And a week after that, one of my most anticipated games of the year, Nick, 007 First Light from IOI. I can't wait for this game. I'm hoping I can jump right on it.
I've kind of stayed away from the preview impressions and stuff.
Yeah, me too. I don't want any spoilers. I don't want to see any gameplay other than the stuff of, from the last showcase that I think we did a reaction to that.
I think so, or something if I remember right.
So other than that, I don't want to know anything else. I saw the car. I took a photo with the car at Gamescom, and that's all the convincing I needed. And then looking ahead, though, or actually, are there any May releases that you have on your radar that I might have missed?
I don't have the explicit date, but Mina the Hollower just got announced. I think that's on the 29th, maybe, of May. Yeah. And then also, Forza Horizon 6 is the other one coming out this month that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. So there's that. And now looking ahead a little bit, we have some release dates for games that we're mildly, at the very least, interested in. The first is Star Wars Galactic Racer. Wow, got the double. October 6th, 2026.
This is a game for the people, I think.
Absolutely.
It looks so sick. It's such a simple, like, kind of concept. It's something that's born from, Episode 1 Racer all the way back on the N64. And where all the best games are from is the N64. But yeah, we just get like a new Star Wars racing game. I'm sure that the stakes probably won't be like, world ending like it always is in Star Wars. So I think this is set up to be like a pretty big win in October. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, the game looks awesome. It kind of, I had this thought, and obviously, like we're going to see it soon. But there's a game on Switch 2 called Fast Racing. No, something.
Fast Racing.
Fast Racing. Because it was a launch title for the Switch 2, and it's like $20 or $15. But I was like, man, this with like a Star Wars theme would have been crazy, and they're doing that, and then some. Obviously, there's a lot more kind of niches kind of being satisfied here in terms of like the different vehicles you can use and how it feels to race. It's not quite the same momentum, but still looks fantastic. The other game is probably one that you might have heard of and you might not have been keeping up with. It's called The Blood of Dawn Walker. This is made from former CD Projekt Red developers, and it's sort of a Witcher-like game. It has a lot of Witcher energy, but they did a recent showcase. It was like a 50-minute showcase where they walked through a bunch of gameplay and gave the release date, which is September 3rd, and also kind of shared some more details about the game. Did you watch this, Nick?
No, I'm kind of, this is going to be my Nick's being a downer kind of thing for the episode.
Oh boy.
I'm not the biggest Witcher fan. I've tried to play those games a couple times, and there's something about it that just...
Which ones?
2 specifically. I've tried to get into 2 a couple times.
Does not age well, I will say. Actually, it's better than 1, but 1 is real bad.
I've heard 1 is like rough.
Yes.
2, I've at least tried like 3 separate times, and I get about like 2 hours in and then just kind of bounce off of it. And I know that Wild Hunt is considered like one of the best games of like, the last decade or whatever. So like
I have to get to it.
I feel a little bad about it, but it's like every single time I play it, it's just like, something's not clicking here for me. So I watch Dawn Walker footage and I'm like, yeah, it looks like Witcher. So it looks like I don't know if I'd be interested in it. I'm also not very into like vampire stuff to begin with. So
Sure. Why is there a Twilight poster behind you then, huh? Just off screen so that people can't see it. Interesting. All right, now it's time for the main topic of the episode, and it's the one that you've all been waiting for. The state of cloud gaming in 2026. This is a topic that we had on our list for a while, and we were like, oh, this would be an interesting time to do it. And we realized that while we were kind of off the air, it was probably the best time to prepare and get this conversation done.
Honestly, I think that this has been on the list since like we started the podcast. Like I'm sure that this was like a docket list item forever.
Yeah. And as we kind of switch to this topic-centered version of this podcast, without the reviews, it's interesting because the 2 of the ideas we've determined so far both require homework. Like their discussion. It's not just like we show up and we're like, here, let's talk about the GTA 6 trailer. It's like we had to prepare for this. There's notes, or there's we're not going to talk about the other topic just yet, but hit the subscribe button and you'll get notified whenever we have that conversation. But today, it's all about cloud gaming. So Nick, how has your adventure with cloud gaming been? I think we can start off by saying like what you used and kind of your first initial thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I don't pay for the highest tier of like PlayStation Plus, which lets you stream the PS3 games and stuff like that. If I did pay for that, that's probably the route I would have taken. At first, I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to use for this project. I'm going to have to like subscribe to something. And then you graciously reminded me that Amazon Luna exists, which is included with Prime subscription, which I do have. So I was like, well, there's my solution. I'm going to try Amazon Luna for the first time. I get like little banner ads on YouTube or something for Luna. But outside of that, I really had no experience with it, no real desire to go interact with it. I mean, like, look behind me. Like, I'm usually a physical game on actual hardware type of gamer, capital G gamer. So from the outset, I would say going into this topic, I had a little bit of bias. I was like, you know what? Like, I've heard...
You had a chip on your shoulder?
I was kind of burned. Like, I never actually tried it, but like I was kind of burned by the whole Google Stadia stuff in the past, and like I always just kind of like,
did you commit to Google Stadia?
So during the first reveal, I kind of like saw the premise, and I was like, I can see,
sure
I can see where this would fit like a specific niche and stuff. And then everybody was kind of like dogging on it, and like I started watching some of the gameplay, and it's like even on the the quotes from like the CEO and stuff that were just like really like not cool, like lame. I don't know what a video game is, but here's us doing a video game thing. Like that kind of rubbed me the wrong.
Yeah, he was just saying people need to calm down about video games.
Right.
And, I will say, because I don't know if we've actually talked about, I don't know, maybe we did talk about Stadia on the podcast, but the premise that Nick is talking about Stadia, the one that really kind of allured me initially was this idea that you could be watching a YouTube video, and below that video, you could see, if it's, you're watching the new Save Slot episode and it's all about Nick loving the Blood of Dawnwalker, then below the video, you'd see a thing that said played Blood of Dawnwalker. You hit the button, and then without any loading, it would just be like the game would start booting up because it's running on the cloud. That premise is kind of crazy. Now, the best you can do is that, I streamed golf with your friends, and I can have the Newegg link to having, so people can buy the game, and then you put in their credit card information, and then use that code onto their Steam account, and then download the game, and then in no time they're playing the game seamlessly.
Right. So, yeah, I had a little bit of bias going into this, and I'll say up at the front that I played 4 games. I played Hot Wheels Turbocharged
2.
Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged.
Unleashed 2.
There we go.
Okay.
Bad name. Bad name score on that one. I played that. I played Tetris Effect Connected. I played Valfaris, and I played...
Is that the mech game?
It's like a retro 2D kind of Metroidvania game. And I played a little bit of, you guessed it, Fallout 4, because,
Okay, I'm glad you did end up playing Fallout 4.
Played a little bit. The big mix of games there that I sort of tactically chose, right? So
for the variety.
For streaming, if this is going to be like actually testing cloud gaming and cloud streaming of video games, I started out with Hot Wheels because racing games typically you feel the controls, like they need to be pretty rock solid. Yeah, the response time if you're going to do well in a racing game. And the first night that I did it, because I'm going to split this up between like 2 sessions, we'll say. It was a few smaller ones in between, but it was mainly 2 sessions. The first session, I actually was kind of taken aback and pleasantly surprised with the experience. Going into it, I also kind of had the perhaps unfair assumption that because it was being streamed over the internet, that it would kind of muddy the visuals, like sort of like when you're watching like a YouTube video and like it randomly downgrades to like 360p or whatever. Like I was kind of expecting that to be a regular thing while playing games over the cloud. And for the first night, I really didn't have many issues at all with the visuals. Like it launched the game up. I was sitting a little bit further away and it was on a smaller screen than I normally play games on. But I was like, hey, like this looks pretty clean. Like I can see all the menus really clearly. There's no like weird fuzzy edges or anything like that. It wasn't like completely like cutting out the image or anything. I did get some sound clipping here and there where it would like for like 2 frames, it would just disappear for a second and come back. But it was pretty minor, all things considered. The one thing that I was also expecting and did feel was some slight input delay, which, as somebody that plays on, native hardware, PC, console all the time, like even if a game's just not optimized right, you can feel like some input delay. But this is just like kind of baked in because, your controller input is going to a server that's bouncing the input back to your screen. So a little bit of that was to be expected. But I was pleasantly surprised at how quick I was able to adapt to that. And it actually didn't really affect the gameplay too much. So all of that to say, I played about an hour of Hot Wheels. I did like the first several races in the story mode, essentially.
Yeah.
And I had a fun time doing it. I played the first game on PlayStation, so I was already kind of familiar with how the games work. Seems like a fine incremental, sequel, but
I saw that you had played it, and so I played a little bit of it just to see what the hype was about, and I did not like this game. I just don't think it's a fun game. I mean, maybe like the like when you're playing it again with full quality and perfect response time, no lag or any kind of buffering. Maybe that's a different experience. And I did find like the room, like the tracks are pretty cool, but it's like it's a Hot Wheels car. It's not like very dynamic, so it's not it doesn't control very satisfyingly.
This actually kind of relates to what we just talked about. It's definitely like a AA arcade racing game. So like there's definitely, you take a spoonful of jank with these games specifically. I think that, the pros of those games are like, oh, the little cars are like, you can see the fingerprints on the windows and stuff. There's like little charming things like that in it. But
yeah,
no,
but like, you don't even get those details on this. You can't even appreciate them when you're playing it on this type of method.
So yeah, like that was like my first night with the cloud streaming, and I walked away and I was like, you know what, that was better than I had expected.
Sure.
And also, because I have my notes here, I did want to say that the controller pairing was like really painless. Like I used an Xbox controller, and it was pretty much like you just went into a menu, hit like one button, and then your controller basically was recognized. So I thought that was really cool. Next, I went to, well, how do you want to do this? Do you want to like each take a game and go back and forth, or should we each just like...
We can go back and forth so that we're not kind of ranting endlessly to ourselves.
Sweet. So that was my first night. So I'm interested to hear what your experience was like now.
So my experience with cloud gaming is probably a lot deeper than yours. Not to brag about it or anything, but I've done it several times across different ways. So my first introduction to it was I streamed me streaming this game. It was Resistance: Fall of Man, a game that you guys didn't freaking pick for the January retrograde episode, and I'll remember that. But I played the first like hour and a half of this game, I think, as kind of a fun thing to just revisit childhood favorite game for me. And that was rough, but I also I can't really hold it against the game because, again, I was streaming. Like, I was actively using internet to stream the game that I was also streaming through the game. So that all said, there was frequent kind of really, I mean, I think you tuned in for at least a little bit of it, so you might have witnessed it, Nick, but it just would just jank up. Like, it would be like super low quality, and I'd just be like, I think I get it. I'm just kind of following my the synapses in the back of my head that were like, this is the way to go, and kind of following the path that way. So that was my first one. And then Nick and I both have the PlayStation Portal. So I did, and I did have PlayStation Premium, which is also how I was able to stream the Resistance 2 or Resistance 1 also. But with the Portal, I played most of my time kind of as streaming games. I don't really like the way that, at least personally, I don't use my Portal. Let's just say that I don't use my Portal much to stream the game from my PS5 directly. I prefer to use the game streaming, and to Sony's credit, they've expanded this. So like, if you have PlayStation Premium, they have a lot of games you can stream directly to the Portal through the internet. And so there's 2 games I played on that, and I'll say briefly, one of them was Prince of Persia, the Rogue Prince of Persia. You can read Austin's review of it over on RespawnStation.com. I kind of just picked it up because I was helping him edit his review, and the game's cool, absolutely banger soundtrack, but you would occasionally lose out on, there's been like one run or like 2 runs where it's a roguelike, and I ended up dying because of like the game kind of locking up on me because of the streaming, which was not great. And then the game that I ended up playing the most through the Portal streaming, which is kind of what I'll consider my first big game, is Back 4 Blood. I played probably about 5-6 hours of this game. I played through like a good chunk of at least like a third of the game, I think. And I thought this was like my first time where I was like, oh, I kind of understand it. I mean, it does feel like, again, like Nick was saying, it takes some time for your brain to sort of get used to the idea of like the input lag, but the human mind is sort of a miracle. So the way that you can kind of slowly tune yourself to just being okay with it or adjusting it is kind of impressive. So that being said, it took me a bit to kind of get used to it, but once I did, it sort of like every time I picked up the Portal, I knew exactly how to control the streaming version of Back 4 Blood. And it's another one of those games, maybe I'm missing something. Like, again, I've given you 3 examples so far. Obviously Nick's. I played Hot Wheels. I played Rogue Prince of Persia, and I guess Resistance we could throw in there as well. But like none of these games, not including Resistance, that I've played for the first time, I actually feel like I really liked. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I don't like. Rogue Prince was probably the closest to that, but again, the dying because of the lag and having to restart runs is like the worst thing. Like it's clearly not a genre that you should play through streaming. So it just doesn't feel like the way. Maybe I haven't found a game that I love through it, and that's why I'm curious when we get to discussion with you about Fallout 4, because that is a game that is how it functions and the mechanics. So yeah, that'll be an interesting conversation. But for now, I just feel like I haven't really played anything where I'm like this. I want to keep going back and play more, and it's on streaming, and I just kind of adapt to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like as I go into my next session, that's where I start to have a similar sort of sensation that you're kind of touching on, which is that the initial high, we'll say, of my first session was kind of quickly, stamped out with the second session. The second game that I played was Tetris Effect Connected, and I have, like Fallout, I've played a lot of Tetris Effect.
It's a multiplayer game, right?
Yes, asterisk. Tetris Effect is single player, and then they added the connected version or mode later after release, and the connected mode is multiplayer. The version that's on Amazon Luna is only the connected mode. So it doesn't have the single player component, but at the same time, the connected mode, you can play solo with AI bots. So
I see.
It's kind of all over the place, but that's pretty much how I did it, was that I was playing the multiplayer mode with bots. But at the same time, I've played the connected mode in the past, and I remember enjoying it. And the last time that I tried playing it on my PlayStation, I remember not being able to find a game. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. Like, I wanted to play it. I kind of wanted to play it. Because it's sort of this, like, unique version where, you have, like, an AI boss Tetris off to the side. And then the 3 players are all doing their own grid at the same time. And once you hit a certain score threshold, all of your boards come together and you can put pieces on each other's boards and start building up a ton of lines. And then it's to help each other. Like, you help each other out, and the more lines you clear, it sends a bunch of garbage lines to the boss. And so you're trying to do that, and as the game goes on, the boss has different modifiers. So like there's one that like the boss can send
cooperative, not competitive.
Yes. It can like make the walls smaller and like shift around, so you have to play around that. It can like give you like weird like misaligned pieces that aren't normal for Tetris. So there's some cool stuff in that mode, and I wanted to pick that A because I remembered having fun with it, but B, this was sort of also like another visuals test, because Tetris Effect is such a like
of particle
lot of particles, a lot of colors, like shit flying everywhere in that game. And again, to their credit, the quality of the streaming, I was like, yeah, I'm not really noticing many, issues or anything. Where I started to get the real issues was in the lag that you were kind of talking about. For whatever reason, the first day, I didn't really have any issues with it for like my first hour and a half with Hot Wheels, however long it was. With Tetris, about halfway through the first like round, essentially, I started getting a connection interruption error on my screen, and the lag became like borderline unplayable. This is when I did see the quality also dip. But like, you would hit the input and the game would like freeze, like it would lock up for several seconds.
Give me a second.
And having just moved and having to gone through the frustrating experience of getting my internet set up, I have pretty good internet. So it's to the point where like realistically it shouldn't have been doing that. And for each of the games going forward, Tetris, Valfaris, and Fallout, I would have these service interruptions pop up after every like 5 minutes or so. And
Yeah.
it like, I'm trying not to be hyperbolic or when I say it, but like the games were like unplayable. It's like for just like a minute at a time, sometimes you just couldn't do anything because like the connection completely dropped out. The input lag was so severe that like you were trying to do things like multiple seconds in the past, and it really kind of soured the whole cloud gaming thing from when like it was such a big roller coaster like drop where it's just like, oh, maybe I've been wrong all this time. Maybe I should have been a little bit more open-minded. And then it was like, nope, this is exactly what I thought the situation was going to be like. And
I guess to clarify a little bit, right? Like, we both have good internets. Mine is like around 200 to 300 up and down, average. But for context, I believe on Luna you can specifically set the stream quality. Obviously, it's not going to stick to that if the signal kind of fluctuates. But if you want 1080p, it's like 13 gigs an hour, and if it's 720, it's like 3 or 5, or somewhere around there. So that's some kind of numbers of how the streaming works. I don't like on the Portal. I don't think you get to really pick. You don't see the rate, but you see stream in 1080 or 720.
Yeah.
Even though kind of and that's just a preference. It's kind of they adjust it based on the rate that your internet's going through and all that kind of stuff as you play. But just some context there.
Yeah, and like Tetris, like it's another kind of precision-ish game, right? Like you do need to like switch pieces around, and like there's things like quick drops. So like if you're playing like hardcore Tetris, like it's a little bit input intensive, but I would actually say that it was a pretty good game when it was working right for the streaming, because sort of like how I mentioned with Hot Wheels, you can kind of adapt to the normal amount of input lag, and the game is still perfectly playable and enjoyable like it is on normal hardware. So like while it was working right, I was having fun with Tetris. And again, there's a little bit of bias there because I'm a Tetris fan and I already like Tetris Effect. So like I knew going in that I was going to at least have like a base level of enjoyment on it. But yeah, like it kind of rubbed me the wrong way going into the Tetris. There's 5 different difficulty modes of Connected, and I played through all of them. So it's, it was playable when working, but as we go into Valfaris and Fallout 4, it just kind of like highlighted a lot of issues with specifically Luna. Again, I've done a little bit of gameplay on the Portal that we've talked about last season, and also when we were doing Life is Strange, I played a little bit of that on Portal. So that's really my only comparison point. But yeah,
I mean, we're also kind of specifically talking about cloud streaming, because just the idea of game console streaming is a whole kind of different can of worms that whether that be streaming your PS5 to your phone or Portal, or through like Steam Link, streaming from your PC to your TV or something like that. We're not really talking about those. We're directly talking about cloud stuff. And Xbox also has a bunch of cloud features that just neither of us have checked out for the sake of this conversation. But yeah, before we got, I guess, get into Fallout 4 and Valfaris, I'll talk about Luna as well, because again, after a bunch of experience on the PlayStation ecosystem with the streaming, I also went to Amazon Luna just to get some context for this conversation with Nick. And overall, I find Luna to be it's the stuff that they did think through, like the controller stuff. It makes sense. Like I appreciate the thought, but at the same time, there's certain things where it just doesn't feel like it's the best way to experience a game.
For sure.
But at the same time, I'm not really sure the people that are really considering cloud streaming or I don't know if they're considering the best situation. They're just like, oh, I can play a video game. And again, another thing, this will be my brief kind of pause before, we get into Valfaris and Fallout 4. This will be the highlight reel for Luna. So Amazon, Jeffy B, if you're listening to this, you can cut this out and use it in promos as you'd like. But to Amazon's credit, oh God, almost came back up. It is impressive how many games are included. They've really tried to get people to incentivize people to get in here. And so if you have Amazon Prime, you have Luna Standard, and that includes, and I was shocked, I talked about this with Nick over text, they includes Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is a huge game, first party, big budget, Xbox release and Microsoft release. The fact that they have that on here as just a game you can play for free is crazy. And I did not check it out because I've been waiting to play that game at the right time. But just if you have a stable internet connection and you wanted to try that game and you have Amazon Prime, those are three different, very niche categories. But there's no real excuse to just not open a web browser and try it out.
The thing with Luna, while we're on the topic of it, is I did have a little bit of Amazon. You're probably not going to use this bit, but I did have a little bit of whiplash looking through the game catalog, going from something like Game Pass, where it's like Game Pass, you have it's got to be at least 100 games in there, right? And I was scrolling through the list on Luna, and I hit the bottom, and I was like, oh, that's it. That's all that's on here. Yeah. And to be fair, that was, standard or whatever. But there's also a fairly humorous, how should I phrase this? Content scale in the offerings. So you do have Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. You do have FC 26 was on there. EA FC 26. Hogwarts Legacy was on there. So there's some big, pretty big games. But then there's also Courtroom Chaos with Snoop Dogg. And so there's, there's definitely some random little games that I had never even heard of before on there. Yeah. Not sure how to exactly gauge the quality. I did not play some of those games, but you get a wide net on Luna, we'll say.
Yeah, and I think the best case scenario for Luna is not to play the big Indiana Jones or Hogwarts Legacy. Again, as from my perspective, if you are someone who kind of play, you have a travel job, or there's certain scenarios that I can conjure up to kind of justify it. But if you're trying to really enjoy a game like Indiana Jones, you want to really appreciate the work that Machine Games put into making that game look good, or the performance of Troy Baker as Indy, or Hogwarts Legacy. If you really want to, feel like you're at Hogwarts and kind of immersed in that environment, you're not going to get that experience out of a cloud streaming service, be it Luna or otherwise. But that being said, last weekend, Alexa Austin and myself streamed game nights. And there's a game night category on Luna that is essentially 4 co-op games. And we played the Game of Life 2. We played Draw and Guess. I don't know how they come up with these guys. That's why Jeff Bezos is bald. He pulls his hair out thinking, what do we call this game? Damn it. And then draw and guess. And but that being said, this was where I had the most fun with this, Luna ecosystem, because they built it out quite well. For example, the Game of Life, right? There's a main screen, and the idea could be that, you don't know what to do. You put this sucker up on the TV, and all of a sudden, the rest of it is on your phone. So you just scan the barcode, it pops up on your phone or iPad or tablet of choice, and you can just hit you hit your screen to perform actions, spin the wheel, and the big game kind of on the main screen, the game's kind of being played out. It's really fun, intuitive, and it takes no real effort to put together. You literally click play, share the QR code or the URL, and all of a sudden you're playing with friends. So that stuff was cool. But again, you know, specifically around something like draw and guess, which requires you to, how do I explain this game? I guess you'd say one person would draw and then the other people guess. Shit, I just thought of a name. So the way that functions, there's some lag there, which is really weird because, you know, we play games like Gartic all the time, which is literally the same concept where, you know, you're on a browser and you're drawing it, except in that one, I guess everyone has to be on a browser versus like a mobile device. But either way, there's no lag in Gartic that when we play, it's like, you know, it's seamless how what they're drawing you see immediately. But in Draw and Guess, there's just like weird jagged lines. It's not quite as seamless. And at some parts, it just feels like it's kind of like, oh, it's roughly this is what they're trying to go for. It's not the exact image. So stuff like that, a little bit of a downgrade. But again, if you're just trying to have a game night with friends, I think that's actually Luna's strongest pillar. I just don't know if that's like a good enough market you know, like I don't know if you're securing the market entirely based on game nights.
And you know, again, finding nuggets of positive in a pile of crap.
Yeah.
That was a little harsh, but I do
Jeff,
like.
He didn't mean it.
I do like how they tag those games as game night games on Luna also. So it kind of like has like a little filter and like,
yeah,
like that Courtroom Chaos with Snoop Dogg, that was like a game night game, but they also have like the Jackbox games on there, like Fibbage and Quiplash and stuff. And I even saw they have like Luna achievements essentially, and some of those are tied to like playing game night games and stuff. So it's like they do have like some incentive. Yes, badges. They do have some incentive to try out different games and stuff, which I think is nice for a service like this. What's not as nice is some of the additional requirements, I would say, for playing a game on Luna. And how I'll phrase this is that there was actually a fifth game that I didn't mention at the top that I tried to play but was not able to, and that was Fortnite Festival, which might come as a surprise to Sri.
Dude, you scumbag! You were trying to play Fortnite without me? Wow.
Specifically Fortnite Festival, which is
festival.
the rhythm game, kind of Rock Band, Guitar Hero style game. I thought going into this, again, a rhythm game, timing intensive, input intensive, that would be a good stress test for, you know, a streaming game. And immediately before even launching the game, it was like, you need to link an Epic Games account and all this other stuff. I was like, I'm not doing that for this. So that was immediately like any Rocket Racing, Fortnite, anything that would need like a link out to a separate account, like that just kind of eliminated some of those games. And I was like, I just really can't be bothered to go try to link all that stuff up. I don't want to get into it yet, but I do need to circle to Fallout 4 real quick for another specific thing on this topic, which was a really...
But now I don't have further things to say about
a really weird situation with that game. So it gave me a warning before launching, and like I kind of like sped read it, and I was like, I don't really think I need to see what this is. This is just, you know, some, you know, functionality thing or whatever. And so I started playing Fallout 4 and watched the opening cutscene. I was like, yep, that's Fallout 4. You know, I just selected John Fallout for the character and everything, and got to the part at the beginning of the game where the Vault Tech representative comes to the door, and you have a little conversation, and it sort of acts as like your character spec sheet. You know, you put in your special stats, you name your character and stuff. The weirdest thing happened, and I went to go name my character, and I selected like the text box, which usually on like PlayStation or something, you select a text box in these games and it'll pop up like the PlayStation, you know, UI with a keyboard, you type things in. Nothing was happening. And I was like, what the heck is happening? Like I'm not using a keyboard, so I can't type anything, and no like digital Luna keyboard is coming up or whatever. Turns out what that warning was telling me about was that some games on Luna, you need to enable a virtual keyboard to interact with. And so I was like, oh, that's probably what that, that warning was telling me how to do, was how to enable this virtual keyboard.
Yeah.
I was like, I just couldn't even think of a situation where I was going to need it playing on a controller. And so then I grabbed my phone and I Googled how to enable virtual keyboard on Luna, because there's no way for me to open up like a menu and check that again.
Yeah.
And basically I had to like use the Fire Stick remote that I was using to open up a sub menu in Luna and then enable the virtual keyboard, so that way I could use my controller to type in the letters to send it to the server to input into the game. Which was like,
that's crazy.
Such a small thing, but I was like, this is an exclusive feature to the Luna version of Fallout 4, like that I have to send my text to, the server or whatever. So yeah, those were just like some other weird like pressure points with the games too, where it may not seem like, a huge thing in the long run, and admittedly like it's not, but these small little things kind of compound on an already suboptimal service, that it's just like, okay, here's just more evidence for like why I would never do this again, and why I would just boot this up on a console if I'm gonna go play that. Yeah.
Go ahead. I mean, we can get into. Do you have anything kind of further deep dive into your thoughts on Valfaris or Fallout 4?
I mean, I'll briefly touch on them. Valfaris, it was a game that has been on my radar for a couple years, but not like very high on the radar. It's sort of this might come off as rude. It's not intended to be rude, but it's like your sort of run-of-the-mill indie retro Metroidvania, kind of like Contra, Castlevania, action-y kind of game. And it's like very sci-fi and like heavy metal. Like, your character, when he gets an upgrade, he's like headbanging and stuff. So there's some fun stuff in there. But this game, and like other like indie retro kind of games in general, I sort of, what I was mentioning with the Tetris is like kind of precise in like when you're doing platforming or when you're trying to attack enemies that are at like different height levels. Like you kind of need to be precise and time these things, different attacks, dodges, things like that, well in advance. And in this game, the input lag was not as easy to adjust to with it. Like I was definitely like 4 or 5 times came to this, death pit jump that I would just fall into and like would be reset, several meters back in the level. I did like a boss fight at one point that like, it was just really hard to kind of adapt to the input latency to like make sure that my shots were like consistently landing where I needed them to be. And the game was, visually fine. Like the games themselves are all like pretty good, but like I was also getting those service interruption things, and it just like doubly hurt, like playing Valfaris specifically, where it's like, this is like an indie game that I'm sure runs flawlessly like on consoles and stuff, to have like it just like constantly interrupted and like really laggy and stuff. It's like this is an issue that this type of game should never like even have, or like have even thought of having, but is now an issue that you experience playing it in this kind of unique way. And same kind of thing goes for Fallout 4. Like you said at the start, like I'm familiar with that game. Obviously, I have over 100 hours in that game, full platinum trophy. Not to flex.
Well, do you have all the badges in Fallout 4 on Amazon Luna?
I don't, unfortunately, but like it was fine. Like again, it had input lag. Like a Bethesda kind of shooter is not Call of Duty. Like it's a little bit slower. You kind of have time to adjust your aim and take shots, so you can kind of work around the input latency a bit more than like Counter-Strike or Valorant than you would.
I mean, VATS also kind of compounds that.
Yeah, so like it was perfectly playable, but whenever you start getting, again, the like service interruptions, the hardcore lag spikes, the weird thing with the virtual keyboard, it's like, okay, where else might I have to, might this just randomly jump scare and pop up that I have to figure out how to use my other remote to activate a virtual keyboard? Like, it's just...
Yeah, and also, I will say that I don't think we actually talked about it specifically. because we were both talking about Amazon Luna. You're specifically streaming it through a Fire Stick onto your TV, right? I'm playing it through the browser. So those are two
Okay.
different
Yeah, I didn't
sort
know
of
that.
experiences for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's your mileage will vary, I guess, is like my ultimate point with it. It really depends on the types of games you're playing. I think it maybe also depends on the type of people you're playing with, because like, I hopped into the stream when you guys were playing, Game of Life and everything, and it's like it seemed like you were having fun. It seemed like there wasn't anything like dramatic that was happening, at least while I was watching, that was like impacting any of the sort of fun. And even if there was, I'm sure having other people there, like kind of like when you're playing a co-op game, like sometimes you just kind of like turn your brain off to some of that stuff and it doesn't bother you as much, whereas when you're sitting down to play by yourself,
like, serious exactly, where like you can harp on it more when you're playing by yourself, whereas with friends you're kind of like on to the next thing. It wasn't too bad. We only maybe dropped like the quality a few times, but again, it's entirely different sort of experience, right? So like those kind of board games are not running the same kind of, it's not the same powerhouse that like a Fallout 4 would be. So I imagine that kind of streaming is just easier as well.
Yeah, and like again, sort of like wrapping my thoughts up on it, like the visual quality, I would say when it was working right, like that did kind of surprise me. Like it really didn't get like super fuzzy or jagged edges like I had this image in my head of. And you briefly mentioned it earlier, but to really highlight, it is kind of incredible in this day and age that you can select a game and it boots up immediately. No patches, no updates, no you waiting an hour because they dropped a hot fix that you need to apply to your game. Like the games just boot up, and like obviously you have to wait a little bit for the server communication and stuff, but it was like a couple seconds. It wasn't that different than just sitting through your normal kind of startup screens when you launch a game. So there's like nuggets in here of things, kind of like how I mentioned with the Stadia, where it's like you see the vision, and it's like I can see where this does work, but this even in this form in 2026, the tech still feels like we're like 2 decades away from hitting that point where it's like it would be anywhere close to replacing a traditional hardware experience.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to kind of wrap up the thoughts on it, right? So cloud gaming in 2026 is a little bit divisive, in that it's got its perks, and there's certainly an audience for it. I just think the audience is super niche in an already niche category. And so, even though Nick was kind of saying it as a joke, I do think that if we're looking at the gamers with a capital G, and I'm using that as people that like physical media or like they value the ownership of the game, and maybe even experiencing games as kind of as best you can experience them. And I mean that in like almost every version of that. I'm saying like the one, like the versions without bugs, the version without delays, the version without hiccups. And sometimes if you're looking at a Fallout or something, like there's so much you can do before Bethesda's recipes start coming into play here. But that being said, I cannot fully recommend Luna or Portal as like the way to definitely experience these games. That being said, I think there's hobbyist games, especially on the Portal, where if you have PlayStation Plus Premium, and I hope that you'd only invest in PlayStation Plus Premium to stream if you have a stable internet to go with it. Same thing with Game Pass Ultimate. I think they can give you a little bit better of an experience in terms of you have a little bit of time. You don't have necessarily a console that you can lug around, but hey, you have your tablet with you. You have your iPad with you, or just your computer that you have. You can boot it up, and from anywhere, you can kind of pick up where you left off. I think that's like a really cool feature. I don't think it's fully implemented across like everything, but again, theoretically, with the Xbox's Play Anywhere and all of that stuff kind of coming into play, You could start a game on your home console. If you have to go somewhere, you have, the cloud version of, ready to pick up where you left off. But again, I found every time that I'm trying to, not just on the podcast, but like even to other people in real life that I'm kind of, discussing this with or pitching this with, it always happens that I have to give them an example of like, hey, if you were in this situation, you would enjoy it. And at a certain degree, it kind of feels like I could just be saying, yeah, you'll love this movie if someone put a gun to your head. Sure. Like, yeah, like there's got to be a winning equation there. But by and large, I just don't think cloud streaming is really the best optimal way to experience a video game. That being said, there is sort of a ideal wish list scenario that kind of came to mind. And Nick, I'd be curious if you have one of these too, because, talking about that Google Stadia pitch of like, oh, you're watching a YouTube video and right below it, there's a button that says play now. It's an interesting kind of concept, specifically around Luna, where if you were to go and be like, oh man, this new Indiana Jones game is out and it looks cool. It's on sale, maybe, whatever. Do I want to buy it? I don't know. You can just boot up the game on Luna, see it, play about 30 minutes and be like, oh, I kind of understand how this works and how I feel about it. And now I'm going to buy the game. Or, oh, no, wait, Hogwarts Legacy looks interesting. Let me play that instead. And I was like, oh, no, this is way better. Let me spend my $30 or $40 or $50 on that instead. I think that's a cool kind of future vision of it. I don't know if that's kind of where it's going to go. I mean, who knows, man?
Yeah, like the future of like game demos or trials or something.
Right.
Like it's sort of like a rebrand into like, try this, service before you spend your money on games. Yeah. That is interesting.
And again, as a buildup of like, if you, again, Jeffy B, man, if you're really trying to help, if you want me to build this out, I can. But like the idea of playing the demo and then being like, you can pay $50 and get a PlayStation 5 or Xbox copy of this game delivered to your door, or you can get Luna Premium or whatever the fuck, and then play the game that way, all the way through. There's something there, but again, it's just I don't know if come next season of Respawn Station podcast we're kind of talking about the news and it's like, oh, Luna's offline now, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I digress. Anything else from you, Nick? Any final thoughts about cloud gaming in 2026?
I'm glad we were able to actually talk about it. Like we said at the start, it's been kind of a long backburnered topic. I was pleasantly surprised in some aspects. I was affirmed in my thoughts and beliefs in others. So I guess that's why we try things, to try to figure out our actual tastes on and opinions on different things. So I don't think it was a waste of time, but I don't also think that I'm going to be playing games on Luna anymore going forward.
Yeah. And I will say another kind of, to go out on a positive, one thing that I think is actually kind of a cool feature is, for a little bit, I was debating going into Fallout 3 exclusively through Luna. I was hoping that I could get it in before this episode as kind of like an interesting way to it's a big RPG to get into through cloud streaming. I unfortunately, as you might have figured out, did not have time to play it. But that being said, my original plan, because I was looking into Luna and kind of the features and stuff, what I could have done is start the game on my Luna account, through the browser or my, TV or whatever. And then wherever I was, I could then go and download that save file and upload it to my PC version of Fallout 3 and continue it locally without having to rely on Luna indefinitely. I think that's mainly a feature for when games get sunsetted on Luna. And so if a certain game that you played isn't available anymore, or it's going to stop being available, you can just download the save file to have with you. But that's a cool feature to have. And especially with something like this, I think it's kind of, it's a meaningful feature to have. But anyway, that brings us to the end of the first new episode of the Respawn Station podcast in 2026. Nick, please do take us out.
Yeah, not sure how that runtime's going to work out. I think this was about the same length as a normal episode, but we're working on it. Don't leave your comments to yourselves. We're figuring it out. So But thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, rating on YouTube is Respawn. That's on Spotify also, right? Yes.
We'll get it on Spotify this season.
Writing on ratings on those are always appreciated, and let us know what you think of the new format. We'll take some of those comments, I suppose, and we'll see how that goes. So, with all of that said, have a good night, a good morning, and a damn good time.